There's a moment I will never forget. I was sitting in my office across from a woman named Eleanor, 61 years old, married for 34 years, retired school principal, smart, articulate, the kind of woman who does not suffer fools. She was describing her husband, Thomas, a good man, loyal, hardworking, faithful. And then she said something that stopped me cold. I don't remember the last time I felt attracted to him. And I don't know why. Because on paper, he's perfect. So I asked her a question. Eleanor, think back to the very beginning. When you first met Thomas, was there instant attraction? She closed her eyes. And after a long pause, she smiled. A real smile, the kind that softens a woman's whole face. Yes, she said. The first time I saw him, something in my chest opened. I didn't choose it. It just happened. Then she opened her eyes and looked at me with raw honesty. What changed? Where did that feeling go? And why does it still happen sometimes with strangers? A man in a grocery store, a voice on the phone, someone I barely know? That question stayed with me for years because Eleanor was describing something real, something most women feel but rarely say out loud: instant attraction. Not the slow-building affection that grows over time with a good partner. Not the practical love of a man who shows up and pays the bills and fixes the leaky faucet. She was talking about that mysterious, electric, involuntary pull towards certain men, the kind that has nothing to do with logic, the kind that bypasses her brain entirely and speaks directly to something deeper. And here's what I've learned after 20 years of sitting with couples, after thousands of conversations with women between the ages of 35 and 70, after reading the neuroscience and the attachment research and the poetry of human longing. Most men have no idea what actually creates that feeling. They think it's about looks. They think it's about money. They think it's about height or muscles or a deep voice or a nice car. And they are wrong. Not partially wrong, completely wrong. What women feel as instant attraction is not a conscious choice. It is not a checklist. It is not something you can negotiate with or argue your way into. It is a nervous system response, an ancient, primal, deeply intelligent signal that a woman's body sends to her brain before her brain has even finished forming a thought. And once you understand what that signal is actually responding to, everything changes. Let me take you back to the neuroscience first, because this matters more than most people realize. The human brain has a region called the amygdala. Its job is to scan for safety and danger constantly, every second of every day, whether you are aware of it or not. When a woman meets a man for the first time, her amygdala is doing something most men never consider. It is asking one question faster than any conscious thought can form. Does this man feel safe? Not, is he handsome? Not, is he successful? Not, does he have good teeth? Does he feel safe? And here's what 20 years of clinical observation has taught me. The men who trigger instant attraction in women are not the men who look like movie stars. They are the men whose nervous systems communicate safety before they say a single word. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine you're walking through an airport, crowded, loud, overwhelming. Your nervous system is already slightly elevated just from the noise and the rush. Now imagine two different men standing near the gate. The first man is handsome, well-dressed, but his shoulders are slightly raised toward his ears. His jaw is tight. His eyes are darting around the room. He's checking his phone every few seconds. His breathing is shallow. You don't notice any of this consciously, but your nervous system does. And your nervous system whispers to you, not safe, tense, unpredictable. Now imagine the second man, maybe less conventionally handsome, maybe dressed more simply, but his shoulders are relaxed. His breathing is deep. His gaze is soft and steady, not staring, just present. He's not checking his phone. He's not scanning the room for threats. He's just there. Grounded, calm. Your nervous system whispers something very different. Safe, warm, I can exhale. That whisper is instant attraction. Not because she decided he was attractive, but because her body recognized something ancient and true. This man regulates my nervous system just by being near him. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was 47 years old. Divorced for 5 years after a 23-year marriage to a man she described as a good provider but a hurricane inside. She came to see me not because she wanted a relationship, but because she was confused. She said, I've gone on 40 dates in 2 years. 40? And I can count on one hand the number of men I felt any attraction to. But here's what I don't understand. On paper, Some of the men I rejected were perfect, kind, successful, interested in me, and some of the men I felt drawn to weren't. So I asked her the same question I've asked thousands of women. Sarah, describe the men you felt instant attraction to, not their resumes, their presence. She paused. Then she said something beautiful. They walked slowly, not in a lazy way, in a unhurried way, like they weren't trying to get somewhere else, like they were comfortable inside their own skin. And their hands. I know this sounds strange, but their hands were still not fidgeting, not gesturing too much, just quiet, like they had nothing to prove. Sarah had just described something backed by decades of attachment research. The most attractive quality a man can have, the quality that triggers instant attraction more reliably than any other, is what psychologists call emotional containment. Emotional containment means your nervous system is not leaking anxiety, urgency, or neediness into the space around you. It means you can hold your own tension without spreading it to her. It means when something uncomfortable happens, a long pause, an awkward silence, a moment of uncertainty, you don't rush to fill it with words, jokes, or performance. You stay steady. And a woman's body? It feels that steadiness like warmth from a fireplace. She doesn't have to manage you. She doesn't have to soothe you. She doesn't have to perform to keep you comfortable. For the first time in maybe a very long time, she can just be. And that feeling of finally being able to exhale in a man's presence, that is what women call instant attraction. Let me give you another example. This one surprised even me. Margaret was 68 years old, widowed for 3 years after 41 years of marriage. She wasn't looking for love. She wasn't sure she believed in love anymore. She came to see me for grief counseling, not relationship advice. But one afternoon, she mentioned something that stopped me mid-sentence. She said, "There's a man at my senior center. Name is Henry. He's not my type at all. He's shorter than me. He's bald. He wears the same sweater every Tuesday." I smiled. But Margaret looked down at her hands. Then she looked up with tears in her eyes. "But when he talks to me, he looks at me like I'm the only person in the room." Not a quick glance. Not a scanning look. He looks at me like he's reading something beautiful and doesn't want to skip a single word. And his voice. He speaks so slowly, like he has nowhere else to be. Like my words matter more than whatever else is happening. Margaret paused. Then she whispered something I will carry with me forever. The first time he said hello to me, my heart did something it hasn't done in 20 years. It opened, without my permission. I didn't choose to feel that way. It just happened. That is instant attraction. Not a choice, not a checklist. A nervous system recognizing safety. And here's what most men never understand. The men who trigger this feeling are not trying to trigger it. That is exactly why they trigger it. Because the moment a man tries to be attractive, the moment he performs, poses, postures, or attempts to impress, his nervous system shifts from safety to striving. And a woman's body feels that shift instantly. She doesn't think he's trying too hard. She just feels slightly less safe, slightly less relaxed, slightly more like someone is asking something of her. And that subtle tension, that tiny increase in her own nervous system vigilance, that is the death of instant attraction. Let me say something that might sound controversial. Women over 40 are not confused about what they want. They have been told for decades that they should want tall men, rich men, confident men, powerful men. But when you sit alone with a woman in a quiet room, when you have earned her trust over years of clinical work, she will tell you a different truth. She will tell you that the men she felt instant attraction to were never the loudest in the room. They were the quietest, not shy, quiet. They spoke slowly because they weren't performing. They listened without interrupting because they weren't waiting for their turn to talk. They touched gently because they didn't need to grab. They looked at her like she was fascinating because, to them, she was. And here is the heartbreaking part. Many of the men watching this right now have never been taught how to be that man. You were taught to compete, to achieve, to prove, to perform, to push through, to dominate, to win. And none of those things trigger instant attraction in a mature woman's nervous system. None of them. Because instant attraction is not about dominance. It is about safety. It is about presence. It is about a man who has done his own emotional work. A man who is not looking for a woman to complete him, regulate him, soothe him, or save him. A man who has learned to sit with his own discomfort without spreading it to everyone around him. That man That man is rare, and when a woman meets him, she knows it within seconds. Not because he announces himself, not because he performs confidence, but because her nervous system finally rests. Let me tell you about one more woman. Her name is Carol. Carol was 55, married for 29 years to a man named Bill. Bill was a good man. He worked hard. He never cheated. He loved his children. But Carol had not felt attraction to Bill in over a decade. She said, "I love him, but I don't feel anything when he walks in the room." And I hate myself for saying that. So I worked with Bill separately for several months, and I gave him a seemingly impossible assignment. I said, "Bill, for the next 30 days, you cannot ask Carol for anything. Not her time, not her attention, not her body, not her help, nothing. You are going to practice being present without wanting." Bill looked at me like I had asked him to learn a new language in a week. "What do I do with my hands?" he asked. I said, "Nothing. Just let them rest. Let your body be still. Let your breathing be slow. And when you're in the same room as Carol, practice one thing only. Notice her without needing anything from her." The first week, Carol was suspicious. She thought Bill was punishing her with silence. The second week, she started glancing at him with curiosity. The third week, she sat down next to him on the couch without being asked. The fourth week, she reached for his hand, not because he had done anything, but because he had stopped doing the things that made her nervous system brace. He had stopped leaking urgency. He had stopped needing her to perform. He had stopped touching her like he was reaching for something. He had simply been present. And Carol's body? It remembered something it had forgotten for 15 years. Safety feels like attraction, not excitement, not fireworks, not chase. Safety. When a woman feels truly safe with a man, when her nervous system is not bracing, not managing, not anticipating demands, something remarkable happens. Her body naturally opens, her desire naturally awakens, her attraction naturally returns. Not because he tried harder, but because he finally stopped trying. So let me ask you a question that might change everything. When you walk into a room, what does your nervous system communicate to the women around you? Are you carrying tension in your shoulders? Are you fidgeting? Are you checking your phone? Are you scanning the room for threats or opportunities? Or are you grounded? Still? Warm? Present? Because here is the truth that took me 20 years to fully understand. Women do not fall in love with resumes. They do not fall in love with jawlines or bank accounts or job titles. They fall in love with the way a man makes them feel inside their own body. And the men who understand this? The rare men who have done the quiet, difficult work of calming their own nervous system? They don't have to chase women. Women feel safe near them, and from that safety comes everything else. If you are a man watching this, I want you to pause for just a moment. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your own heartbeat. Notice your own breathing. Is it shallow or deep? Fast or slow? That rhythm? That pulse? That is the energy you are bringing into every room. And if you want to be the kind of man who triggers instant attraction, not through performance, but through presence, then your work is not outside of you. It is inside. Learn to calm your own nervous system. Learn to sit with silence. Learn to notice without needing. Learn to touch without grabbing. Learn to look at a woman like she is fascinating, because she is. And one day, maybe sooner than you expect, a woman will meet you. And she won't be able to explain why. She won't be able to put it into words. But something in her chest will open, and she will feel it. That quiet, ancient, beautiful signal from her nervous system to her soul. This man feels like home. Soft piano music swells gently, warm, hopeful, deeply human. If this conversation touched something in you, I hope you'll subscribe. Not because of algorithms, but because there are more conversations like this to share. About safety, about presence, about the quiet art of becoming someone a woman can finally exhale around. I'll be here next time. Until then, slow down. Breathe deeply. And remember, instant attraction is not about what you do. It is about who you are when you stop doing.